business with Mr. Sanjay Chaturvedi. Thanks a lot, Sanjay, for joining in. Let's talk about margins first. We did see an improvement quarter on quarter. The last quarter was a big dip is what we saw.
Yes.
Where do you think margins settle from here on? And while we're on that topic, how are IBB prices?
Okay, so let me begin by answering, your first question, which is about, indication for profitability levels. We feel confident that, EBIT numbers between 15 to 20% are very sustainable. Going forward this year, we are confident of delivering about 15% EBIT numbers, and going forward, we will inch closer to the 20% level. Now, in terms of the IBB pricing, the pricing continues to be pretty stable. Last quarter, Q2 was when we saw pretty much the lowest profitability levels we'd seen in a while. And I'm happy to say that we do believe that we have bottomed out, and the future actually looks pretty good.
Good morning, Mr. Chaturvedi. Thanks for joining us. This is Pavitra. Your guidance was to do around 300 to 350 crores in terms of non-ibuprofen sales. Can you tell us what that number is at right now, and what is the outlook on that? How much do you see it growing in, say, FY23?
So I'm happy to report, Pavitra, we are on track for that number. This quarter, we've done, approximately 90 crores or so in the non-ibuprofen business in terms of revenue. And, overall for the year, we will close at about, 350 crores or so. So we are certainly on track for that. And that's the one silver lining in all of our pharma performance. If you look at quarter on quarter growth, our non-ibuprofen business is growing substantially. And for this particular quarter, almost 17-18% of our entire revenue is from the non-ibuprofen APIs. So I'm very happy to report that by the end of this financial year, a significant chunk of our revenue will come from non-ibuprofen business. And as we scale up the volumes, and now that we have certain approvals in export markets as well, as that business starts to ramp up, you will see an improvement not just in top line, but also in the bottom line for that particular segment. And I think at that point, we would have, investors would also see a positive light in terms of we are not over dependent on one molecule, which is ibuprofen.
By the way, at a time when Dolo and Crocin and everything's going viral, I'm an ibuprofen faithful. Okay, Mr. Chaturvedi, what about your chemical segment? We've seen some recovery in margins, QOQ, but, it's still on the lower side. So can you give us some outlook on, where things are headed?
So I would say that there is a lot of volatility in the raw materials. Both on acetic acid as well as ethanol. Acetic acid raw material had touched prices around 80 rupees, and now it's down to around 60 or so. So for us, the big challenge is, since it's an imported raw material, how do you manage the volatility in the raw material pricing? And whatever we pay for raw material pricing, our ability to translate that in terms of the final cost that we pass on to our customers. So I think I would suspect on an average, we would give 8 to 10% kind of profit numbers in the chemical segment. And yes, Q2 was perhaps one of the worst, and that was perhaps when the raw material pricing was at an all-time high. So I think the worst is behind us, and we are very confident in good performance from our chemicals business.
Well, that's good to know that the worst is behind you, and notwithstanding the near-term volatility, let's talk about the long-term prospects as a whole, because the last time we did speak about the industry at a macro level was when the BASF plant hadn't opened. Now 2021, the BASF plant has opened. What does demand for ibuprofen for the world stand at right now? I remember it being around 35,000 tons per annum. Is that still at that level? What does supply look like? And where do you stand among all the other players in the world?
Okay, so, demand continues to be between 35,000 tons a year level. From a supply standpoint, yes, BASF is certainly back. And, we continue to produce at almost, 70% asset utilization. There are some smaller Indian players that have decreased their production. So I think both from a demand and supply side, it is pretty much balanced out, which is also reflected in stable pricing. And we do expect the prices to edge forward in the coming quarters for ibuprofen.
To what?
So, the prices had dropped to about $10 to $11 levels, and we think, certainly 50 cents a kilo in that range, they will improve in the next coming quarters.
All right, Mr. Chaturvedi, we will leave it at that today. Thank you very much for joining us and taking us through the earnings as well as the outlook going forward for the company. With that, we get into a